Hi, today is April 2nd, 2019, and I am Cindy Earp from the Heritage Committee for the city or town of Indialantic. I've been told many times, never say city, always say town. And we're here today to interview Chris Chinault, who is going to be retiring after being our city manager for 19 years.
Yes, ma'am.
And so we wanted to have a historical perspective from Chris and find out what we can expect from him, from our town in the future, and see what remembrances there are that he would like to forever have us have here in Indialantic. So with that being said, I did ask some of our members if they had any questions for you.
Oh,
but more than anything, they all wanted me to convey to you their appreciation for your efforts in being our city manager over the year and taking such a personal touch and approach to managing our city. We are proud of it, and you've helped keep it the town that it is. With that said, they did send me a few questions, not too many.
I know she had about 15 sheets.
Yeah, no, it looks worse than it is, believe me. But your starting date was 3/27/2000, so we're almost right on the money as far as your 19 years.
Almost.
But why not 20?
Because I want to spend time with my grandkids.
I can quite understand.
It's not about
that.
the time you spend in it. It's
It
about
isn't.
what you're able to accomplish. And
It's
who
timing.
you work with. It is.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, we had a question that came from one of the members that wanted to know your thoughts and memories that you will take with you as you leave Indialantic.
Well, probably if the memories I will take, it will be of the people who've lived here and I've been able to associate with. This is a great town, and I kind of said it in my letter of resignation. It's just a wonderful place. I never expected to be here. I've been in county government for about 19 years, and I wanted to switch over because it was getting a little tiresome working in counties, and I thought municipalities would be a little more exciting, a little different, and I had time left on my calendar that I needed to work somewhere. So this was available. I was available. I came here, thought, well, long term, I'll be here 6 years. And every time something would come open that I could look at and consider, I just couldn't find a place that was better. People that were nicer, councils that would treat me better. And it just was a really nice community. It's been a real blessing for me to have been here and to have enjoyed the people. The sad part is when you're here this long, you see there are a lot of people who go away, and they don't necessarily move on, they die. And so in that process, you see that evolution of those people that you've come to know, particularly the ones who were older when I came here. There were people like George Gregora, Tom Lawton, John Allen, just a lot of people that, Doug Banks, and it just, all those people were just a part of what I did when I came here, and were very welcoming. And I remember when I first got here, Tom Lawton stopped in very early and said he didn't have an appointment, of course. And because it's a small town, you don't make appointments. He just wandered in and said, "Hey, I want to, let you, the new guy, know what this town's about. So you're off, get started on the right foot." So he just came in, sat down, and
Gave you advice.
Exactly. Gus Carey did the same thing. Les Barlow was more like, well, why don't you stop by and we'll have a drink by the pool, something like that. He was less talking about business.
He was a lot more welcoming.
That's right. He was a lot more casual.
Well, that's the variety of people that we have here.
It really
and
is
fascinating people from every walk of life. It's just, I'm never...
Well, you still do when you run into Bud Evans and you think, well, he's a nice old guy, and you look at his resume and you go, wow. It's exciting, the people you've had. And Orlando Briante, and what he's been able to do in his life before he passed away. It's just, they're very exciting people.
Oh yeah. That's what makes Indialantic and Brevard County. Well, Jennifer Marks, who you know quite well, is a wonderful woman and another asset to our city. She says, what about possible scenarios of what he'd like Indialantic to be in maybe 10 or 25 years?
I hope it's a lot like it is now. What we've seen is, when I came here, there were very few properties that were for sale. Very few properties for rent either. But over the years, we find that there is more of a tendency to have turnover in the houses. Like, somebody will buy a house and they'll spend some money fixing it up. They might add an addition, and then in 3-4 years, it's on the market. Somebody will buy it. They'll make a few changes to it. 3-4 years, that same house is back on the market. 3 or 4 years, the same thing. It's a different type of mentality, I think, of the people who are moving here that aren't necessarily moving here to be here forever.
Right.
It's a part of their life, but it may not be the rest of their life. And so we're seeing more of that, and that's why today we'll see a lot more for sale signs and houses. Excuse me.
My particular street is a good
Yeah.
example of that. We lost a couple that had lived there for 28 years across the street. They've moved on to assisted living. We had 2 engineers move in and a nurse that have bought houses around us that have been owned by long-term residents. So you're right about that. I hope we can keep the prices down so we can keep those little families coming in from time to time.
Until you get ready to sell your house, then you want the prices go back up.
I want it to be the top of the bubble. That's right. It's a balance in our town, I think, between commercial and residential. What do you see that would change or could be any different?
Well, I don't know that you certainly want to change it. We've had people come in and they want to change the comp plan because they say, well, you should be able to do this or that or go up higher or do any number of things. But what you find is this is really not a beach community. It's really just a residential community that happens to be on the beach.
Right.
And if you focus on that and make that the priority, then the people are the priority, not the businesses, not whether it's Starbucks or Max Lounge or longboard house or long doggers or anything else. It's about the people who live here. And if that's the focus, then the businesses that accommodate them will follow. And we've seen that in many cases. And of course there are changes in the commercial industry. We used to have 4 flower shops in town. Now we have 1.
Yeah.
We used to have travel agencies in town. We don't have that anymore.
It's changed with the world has
exactly.
changed. Yeah.
The people
e-commerce is
that's right.
taking over.
It's all different than it used to be. So
yeah, that's true.
we find those kind of changes. We still have some hair places and nail salons and places like that.
The personal services will
Exactly. But
continue.
when I came here, we were on the downside with the grocery store. Excuse me, in the shopping center. And so that was here for about 6 months and it closed down. And now we're coming full circle.
With more personalized types of grocery stores, though.
That we're getting a Publix that's coming in,
Yeah.
smaller Publix, but we're getting a Publix in, so we're coming full circle. Yay!
Yeah, we like that. How about the day in the life of the city manager? Is there an incident or an event that you thought that, I thought I'd seen everything? I couldn't resist asking that.
I don't know. I hadn't thought of that. I don't know that there's any one thing that I would look to be different. Every day, for the most part, is different. Some of the days are pretty much the same, but every day is a little bit different in that you have people will just pop into your office.
Right.
Particularly people like from the Heritage Committee or people have particular interest in the park or something, and they'll just wander in, and they
Make themselves
they can't help
comfortable.
themselves. Well, they hear we have candy on the desk,
That's
so they just
right.
come in.
And I've heard that Dick Dunn likes the candy.
He likes the chocolate.
Yes.
But don't tell his wife.
Okay.
So because she probably doesn't let him have it.
Just so the crowd knows, Mrs. Dunn just joined us. She's also a member of the Heritage Committee.
Welcome.
Thank you.
What focus would you recommend citizens have for our future?
Well, I think they need to be vigilant in terms of maintaining the infrastructure, whether it's a storm drainage system, the condition of the roads. We have roads that haven't been paved for 30 years. That's not a bad thing, though, if you look at them. If I could give you a list of a list of roads that were resurfaced a little and over 30 years ago, you'd look at them and you'd say, well, that's not too bad. And so you would be surprised that it's held up so well. But that's part of what we do is we monitor and stay on top of those things so that we don't have problems down the road. But we do have to be vigilant and maintain the infrastructure to ensure that we have the kind of community we want. I had this vision that we ought to be more of a walkable community. Not that people don't walk, they do.
I do too.
But I thought, let's go out and put some sidewalks in. And we've done a lot. We've tied the existing sidewalk segments together. We've made some of the corridors where people live into more walkable areas by having sidewalks. And I said, well, why not we do a study? Let's hear what everybody wants to do. So we got a nice grant from the state and involved the community, and I was surprised. A lot of the people didn't want sidewalks. They're happy with the way it is. It's the character of what they like. And the advantage to that is it gives me the perspective that while I have a vision of what I think the town ought to be like, it's always better when you can respond to what they really want.
Correct.
So the residents wanted a little different, so that's where we learned.
That's interesting because I've been in focus groups before, and you're always surprised at what the residents think about things.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like I'm always saying, why can't we get more people to come to county commission,
Mm-hmm.
city commission meetings? And I'm one that doesn't go unless there's an issue. But I think that's a product of we're doing good things, and because believe me, if there was something going on they didn't like, they'd be here, wouldn't they?
They would. They would. But I think it's always important. One of the things that we tend to take for granted in the profession of municipal government is we tend to think we know, and we tend to think that this is a good idea for this community, or this worked well in that community. But until you really go out and ask people and listen to their feedback and receive their feedback, you don't really know. So that's a good opportunity to be able to respond to do the things they want.
Well, as a Heritage Committee person, we're always involved in history and trying to keep track of history for the people coming in so they know what we have been before and what we plan to be in the future. And, I remember when I did the panel that involved all the older surfer guys, that one of them said, Indialantic's not known for its soccer fields and, some of the things that other bigger cities are, or cities are. The town of Indialantic is really known for being at that beach or that boardwalk or the smaller shops that we have around here. And, I see that kind of mentality still in Indialantic, that people kind of like the small town atmosphere, although we are kind of in the middle of all the traffic that goes in and out of the beach side, but we're learning to live with that. I think the new crosswalks may be a big plus.
We'll find out.
We'll find out. I hear both sides of this coin, but I think it's an advancement to our town.
Yeah.
I think as Heritage Committee people, we also like to be able to invite the public to come and involve themselves in our panels every year, and we've gotten a few good ones that I think people were interested in and reevaluated their friendships from over the years. What would you say would be the thing that we most can do in the future about involving the public on a regular basis with the town?
Well, I think certainly the Heritage Committee has done that by giving them something that brings them together and lets them find out where the town hall is. I'm sure there's some residents who don't have a clue.
I'm sure.
And it's so much better when they can come on a positive note rather than, well, we've got a proposal to have a 5-story building or a 10-story building, and then of course they all come and protest. But it's so much better when you can have a program like the Trade Winds Terrace, or the Trade Winds, excuse me, the Trade Winds Hotel, and people can come and learn about that because it's something that many of the people here, probably most of the people here, have never seen. They just know that we do have Trade Winds Terrace, and we have a bunch of houses out there.
Right.
And well, exactly where was the hotel, and what was it like, and and that was a very good program. But unfortunately, there are people in future years who will not have been to that program, who will have moved here. And so you're going to have to do it again.
Yeah, and the other thing is some of these videos that we have taken of those panels, we need to promote a little bit more so people
That'd be a good idea.
Can see what's happening. Our walking tour of all the historical homes that we still have. A few of them have gotten torn down, but we're trying not to let that happen. But there's not much you can do about just the attrition of time.
No, you can't. And of course, the Bahama Beach Club would be a great one to really focus on. That people have memories of it and things and talk about it.
We've talked about doing one on that.
And the Heritage Committee has been great by moving forward with the the marker out there, the plaque that's a historical marker that
gets people's interest up.
Exactly, because they say, well, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Beach, what was that like?
That's right.
Gambling place?
That's right. Well, tell me if there's a story you would like to share with us that makes you laugh or makes you, proud of whatever.
Well, I don't really have a story to tell, but one of the things that we've always tried to do, and I guess it's a little pet peeve of mine, is you go into some communities and you see these little stickers on the signs, on the stop sign, or you see graffiti or things like that, and that's always annoyed me, and I won't mention anybody. You can go up A1A and find some. You can go down A1A and find something. I've always felt that you want to have a place that's got a little class, and this town has a lot of class. And the people have a lot of class, and you want to give them something, and when they drive home and they reach the borders of the town of Indialantic, they feel a little bit about where they are. They feel a little safer. They have good fire and rescue people to take care of them.
Yeah.
And it looks a little nicer. Not grandiose. Maybe it's not like Naples, Florida or something with grand palm trees in the median or something, but it's very attractive and it makes them feel comfortable.
I think you've accomplished that so far, and hopefully we'll continue to do that in the future. India, I can remember when I first moved here, my husband we've lived in, the Earps have lived in the house for 50 continuous years, but when you say you live in Indialantic, people always kind of look at you like, a little bit like we're a little higher class or something.
Yeah.
And I don't feel that way, because everybody I meet and talk to are very down-to-earth, nice people. But it does have a quality to it that from the outside looking in. But we're a very small town.
Yeah.
That's the hardest thing I have to convince people, is they don't live in Indialantic proper. Will we ever solve that problem?
No.
Okay.
I think
So I'll just quit worrying about it.
I would, because I think
Okay.
if you ever wound up separating it, somebody would say we don't need a post office in Indialantic, and that would go away, and then
we'll be
all the
going-
area north would be
Yeah.
called something else.
That's
We'd
right.
be all part of Melbourne. So
How big is the city of Indialantic, acreage-wise or mile-wise, or however you
I think
want
it's
to
about
measure?
a mile by a mile and a half, maybe something
Okay.
like that. It's small. It's not
Yeah.
big. It's got about 2,700 residents, 2,800 residents,
Okay.
about 2,800 now, I think. So it's small. It never really grows. It goes this way, then it goes this way,
Yeah.
and it goes back up, and then it goes back down.
And it can only go so high. Correct?
Yes, correct. And you have properties that you still could have more. Back in I guess maybe back in 2005 or whatever, we had some property on the ocean that was designed for 38 condominiums. So I've been approved by zoning and planning, but the economy went in the toilet, and as a result of that, there's a nice big house there, and a person lives in it, and that's what you wound up with, one residential structure as opposed to 38 condominiums.
Yes.
And so you do have a smaller population that's dictated to by the economy and how that works. So you still have some properties that will be redeveloped.
Yes.
So
Well, I always pray whenever I see a people's property on the ocean that's becoming a home instead of a condo. So, not that I have anything against condos, because I might live in one soon. Pam, is there anything you would like to ask Mr. Chinault?
I haven't heard the whole interview, but I know Chris and I worked so closely together on Lily Park. Is there anything you want to tell us about the parks? I know we have
Yes,
13
good
in our
point.
town.
we've been very pleased to have a good cooperative relationship with the Heritage Committee and the Garden Club, and certainly the Parks and Recreation
Parks,
Beautification Committee. And it's nice to be able to make the kinds of improvements that we have been able to make to put them in a position where there won't be perhaps as much maintenance. For example, the boardwalk, the wood decking was all replaced with what I call a Trex material. Might have been Moisture Shield, it might have been Trex, but something that takes less maintenance to be a burden on the taxpayers down the road. And the same in terms of looking at the parks in terms of handicap accessibility. We've added a lot in terms of Access 6 at the end of Fifth Avenue that allows people to have greater access to the beach who have mobility issues. And we've been able to do things like the pier at Riverside Park, 433 linear foot pier that's lighted at night that adds to the attractiveness. And Lily Park, we've been able to marry together drainage retention along with a very, very attractive park. And so it's just a nice recreational feature tied into the Magnolia Pedway, which would be expanded to have drainage features to help with the storm drainage situation. So that'll be nice. And we've been able to add play equipment to Riverside Park, Orlando Park, a nice adult bench in Riverside Park so people can enjoy that. Each has kind of its own feature. And so that's been a nice thing we've been able to do by working together, is to build on those. And so a lot of those with grants, with FERDAP grants, we've been able to do that and make things a little better, more active. We've been able to put sidewalks in Orlando Park that weren't there before, so that people with mobility issues can go and enjoy it. And as I get older, I'm reminded of a time I went to Orlando Park shortly after coming here, and there was a gentleman sitting in a van, and excuse me, he wasn't a deviant of any kind that I could tell, but he was watching the kids play, and I just kind of said hi to him, and there were some young kids out there playing, and he said he was their grandfather, and they were down visiting, and he just couldn't go out there because he had mobility issues. He needed something firm under his feet, and the grass was not a good thing. So we've been able to expand the walking area in there, not just for little kids on three-wheelers, But for people like that to be able to get out of their vehicle, handicap parking space, walk on concrete surface and get close to the play area, sit on a bench, and enjoy their grandkids
That's great.
playing. Yeah, and it's the park should be for everybody. They're
It
not just for
should.
people to look at.
That's
They're for
true.
people to go out and enjoy. And so if things wear out and get broken, we need to replace them and
Right.
move on and just
Yeah.
keep building on that and maintain that attitude.
Were you the one who initiated a lot of these committees, citizen-supported committees that advise you in things like the parks and rec activities?
No, I'm happy to work with them, but I'm not one to initiate that. I think
Okay.
that came more from the community.
Yeah, because that's a way that the citizens can really be involved, and I know Pam serves on several of the committees, and I serve on the Heritage, and it is a way that we can contribute, without
Oh, it is.
expense to the city, really, that helps improve everything around. Especially the beautiful foliage in the parks and the things they've done with some of that. I mean, it's just to be able to sit in some of the parks is just lovely.
And it is a great opportunity for residents to know what their community does by serving on the different boards, whether it's the code board or
Yeah.
the pension board, probably not the most exciting, but the code
But
board,
needed.
yeah, zoning and planning, board of adjustment. Those are boards that are very important. Parks and
Right.
Rec, and they all have an active group, and they do a lot of good things. So
And our volunteer, our fire department is a volunteer fire department, is it not?
no, ours is paid. We do
It
have a
is,
volunteer
okay.
component.
Okay, all
And
right.
they're very active.
Yeah.
But the advantage is if you fall and hurt yourself and you call 911, you'll have somebody there quicker than usually through a volunteer, because people don't have to come from
Right,
work
they're
or something.
there.
They're there.
Yeah.
Makes a big difference.
Well, that's a huge thing for a town our size to have such a wonderful group of people that are dedicated to our safety.
Well, a lot of that's based on the residents themselves. Back in the early days when Tom Barker was the chief, he developed a program, and we went to the, excuse me, get this little nasty cold. We went to the residents and said, what do you think? It's just a straw ballot. Council's not bound by it, but we'd like to go from a basic life support to an advanced life support. So we'd like to add 3 people and to the 3 that we have. And this is what's going to cost. And we're going to raise your taxes. We didn't say we'd find the money. We didn't say we're going to get a grant. We said, we're going to raise your taxes. What do you think? And the majority of the residents overwhelmingly said, well, that's
Fine with
okay. We'd
us.
like to have that. We'd
Right.
like to have that. So
Right.
please do. And so council did, and we have been the same, advanced life support, ever since.
Yeah.
And gives you the level of service that gives you the best care you can get. So we're pleased.
Well, I know one thing I have heard over and over is your hands-on touch. And I have to say, I've seen you go down my street checking on something every now and again. And, you're known for that. You really are. People say, oh, I saw Mr. Chinault in his pickup truck coming down my street today. So, I don't know if you're aware of it, but we all say something about your hands-on approach.
So
you know?
I guess I should have a rental car and get a different one every week.
So nobody knows you're coming.
Incognito. Say, hey, there's a town manager. Let's get him out of here. Well, I think it's important that you understand what's going on in the community. And it's good to see. It's good to see when there's a code violation or somebody's got a dead tree that could, if nobody tended to it, if it wasn't sighted, it could blow over during a windstorm. Wouldn't that be a hurricane windstorm? That dead tree could fall on your neighbor's dead tree could fall on your pool cage that you have, or fall on your house or your car. So we need to be proactive. So we try to find any potential code violations. We try to see if there's construction going on, somebody doesn't have a permit. We try to make sure that everything is high quality, so the residents have something they can be proud of.
Well, that heads off issues where people are mad at each other over a code violation that can create huge problems.
That's true.
If left undone.
That's true.
So that's a good thing. I hope we can continue that kind of hands-on experience in the future. I can't think of anything else that I want to ask you.
That's fine.
Is there anything you want to add to this? We won't hold you to it. I mean, you'll be gone. We can't sue you over it or anything like that.
You could go on YouTube or something and find this god awful thing out there.
Well, Chris, as you leave Indialantic and go to North Carolina, what memories of this town are you going to take with you?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, it's mostly the people. It's the wonderful people that were here. It's the fact that we've been able to maintain the town. We haven't found the need to be, where the people rush in and go, oh my goodness, we need to do this differently. We need to have we need to change the code so we can allow this big building or this big store. Let's rip up Fifth Avenue and put down pavers, you know, and let's do this. You know, it's like, we kind of like what we have here. It's like with the sidewalk plan when it was done. People say, we kind of like what we have here. Let's make it better, but let's not muck it up. And I think that's a real sense of, you know, the seriousness of the town. While everybody's here and having a nice time, they like what they have. They're, you know, you don't need to just change everything when you move in and say, well, I'm used to this community and we ought to do this, this, and this. Say, well, that's not Indialantic. You know, Indialantic has a certain style to it, and we're open to change, but let's be cautious and considerate when we do that.
That's right. It's not in my backyard mentality.
Right.
Right.
It's a good philosophy.
Yes, that's right. Well, we want to thank you again for all of your work. And
Thank you.
hope that everything you do in the future is as successful as what you've been here in Indialantic.
Well,
We do appreciate
helping
it.
to raise my grandsons, I hope it is.
You'll have fun. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else, Pam?
Thanks, Chris. No,
Okay.
we're going to
Thank you.
miss you.
That's right.
Keep in touch.
I will.
Thank you. And thank you to Lauren Strand, who has been our assistant here today, videotaping this for the future. Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you, Lauren, and do edit it.